All right, so we are working on a new assignment called Asking Questions About Death, and this is actually going to be a summative assignment, so it goes in that big category. Hopefully this is something that is going to improve our grades because you are going to have the opportunity to submit it and then get feedback and revise it. So it should be something really good for you. But one thing that I have learned as a teacher is like we're very curious, but we're not always great at asking good questions. So first I'm going to go over what are some types of questions that I'm going to be asking you for, and then we'll talk about what makes a good question for a forensic investigator. So there really are like 3 different types of questions we're going to be using. The first, we're going to talk about open-ended questions. So open-ended questions are the type of questions that you cannot answer with yes or no. So if you were taking a test, the open-ended questions end up kind of being like the short answer or essay type questions on your test that you would take. A closed question is going to be one that could be answered with yes or no. Or like a one-word answer. Or fact. Like it's just this, right? What color is your sweatshirt? Pink, right? That's not open-ended. There's one right answer. When we are talking about our open-ended questions, it requires an explanation. Why won't it write that? There we go. All right, and then we add another layer of difficulty. And this is the one that sometimes can be kind of struggling. And because it's important, I'm going to switch colors. We're going to talk about our scientific question. So a scientific question needs to be a few different things. It needs to be measurable, so we can test it. It needs to be able to be defined, so like it has clear parameters or constraints. And along the same lines as defined, it needs to be able to be controllable. And so what these things do is they set you up for a good experiment. And we know that experiments have to have something that can be measured. It is defined. It has controls that we would use to make sure that it is a good experiment and that we're going to be able to tell if our experiment was successful or not. And we also need to make sure that we are including our variables. So we had 2 variables that we learned about forever in every scientific class you've ever taken. We have our independent and our dependent variables. So I like to use an acronym to remember this. So it's dry mix. So dry mix is just what you have to remember, and then you just fill in the words that dependent variable is the one that responds to what was changed, and it goes on the y-axis when you're graphing. And then the variable that you manipulate is the independent variable, and that goes on the x-axis. And if we have that, then you're ready for graphing, you're ready for experimental design, and you can write a scientific question that includes some scientific variables that you would do if you were going to test it. So today's assignment is going to ask you to do a 3-2-1. So what a 3-2-1 is I'm going to have you write 3 open-ended questions. And these questions need to be about what an investigator could ask to try and figure out the manner, cause, and mechanism of death. So if we were thinking about they came up to a murder scene, you're looking for big picture questions about what's going on, not just a small detail. It's not just what was the murder weapon, right? What was the murder weapon is something that could be answered very short. We're looking for more of an explanation. You can look into like motive. You can look into how does this piece of evidence relate to the crime? Like if you're looking for a relationship, but these should not be like yes or no accurate fact answers. Then you're going to come up with 2 closed questions. So the closed questions are those facts of like, okay, was the knife the murder weapon, right? They're yes or no. They're things that can be quickly tested and proven. And then I'm going to ask you to come up with 1 measurable scientific question. And so the scientific question is going to be a little bit more complicated because in normal years, I would actually have you do an experiment with your scientific question. This year, a little more complicated with our hybrid schedule and with our restrictions, but I'm going to do some experiments that some of you will come up with. I don't think we'll be able to do that many, but think about ways you could figure out time of death. Time of death. And so the reason I'm telling you this is in past years, if I leave it way too open, I think you get overwhelmed by what am I going to actually test about a crime scene. But think about, like we watched that body farm video, think about the mortises. What could you test with the cooling of the body? Or what could you test with like different environments that the body could be put in to tell time of death better? Does that make a little bit more sense? I'm seeing some nods from our classroom here. So this is what the final assignment is going to be. And I'm going to have this actually due on Thursday. And so the reason it's not going to be due until Thursday is today you're going to make a huge list of questions. And then you're going to go through and identify which are open, which are closed, and which would be scientific. So you are going to submit today your brainstorm with the labels. And then on Thursday, we'll go over what makes a really good one, like what are some good examples from your list, and then you'll submit the best 3 open-ended, the best 2 closed, and then your 1 scientific. So that's going to be like our revision process. So this is today's assignment. It is also the last day of the term. So quarter 1 is now over. So our assignments are going to be locking. If you're missing anything, make sure you get those turned in today, especially if you have like a partial assignment done that you just haven't turned in. So this will be posting on Canvas in just a moment where you can submit your brainstorm separately. And then our 3 open-ended, 2 closed, and 1 scientific will be due on Thursday. Friday is going to be a Kahoot day. And then Monday, we're going to have a quick little check over how well we know the changes that occur after death. So not a scary assignment, but it is a summative. So have a great rest of your Tuesday. Here we go.